Hi guys, how's it going? David O'Sullivan here, and in this video I'm going to be ranking all of the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If any of you know anything about me, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of the Marvel movies, and to mark the release of Doctor Strange, the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I thought this would be ample opportunity to look back over the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, from Iron Man back in 2008 all the way up until Doctor Strange. I'm not going to count Doctor Strange in this because it's not going to just come out. I've only just seen it for the very first time. I need to see it again like another 2 or 3 more times probably before I can figure out where to put it in this list. So I'm not going to be including Doctor Strange in this list, but everything from Iron Man till Civil War I'm going to be ranking all 13 of the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starting with the worst and working my way up into the best. With that being said, let's just get straight into this. Coming in at the bottom of the pile, unfortunately unlucky number 13 it seems, is Thor the Dark World. I don't hate Thor the Dark World, it just goes to show a lot about Marvel that even the one at the bottom of the pile, the worst, in my opinion, is not even one that I dislike all that much, and it's not that great. But there's a lot I like about Thor the Dark World. Obviously Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Tom Hiddleston as Loki is great. He just steals the show, he steals every scene he's in. And just Thor and Loki together, I really like the whole relationship between the two of them. How Loki comes back in this film in more of an anti-hero role, and them working together it seems. And yeah, those two are what make this film, I would say. But it kind of falls short with the villain. A lot of Marvel has a very big problem with getting really good, great, memorable villains. And Malekith could have been great, but he had hardly any screen time. And they were going to flesh out his backstory, I think. Give him kind of compelling emotional reasons as to why he's doing what he's doing. But that was kind of cut out. Like, there was supposed to have been scenes with him and his family, I think, him losing his family, and that would have really helped us care for him and get behind him. But a lot of the Malekith scenes, it seems, were cut out. A lot of the stuff with the Dark Elves, I think, was left from the cutting room floor, which is unfortunate because I think Christopher Eccleston did a good job on the role, but again, the villains were pretty kind of lackluster and not very memorable. A lot of the humour, for me, doesn't really work. They tried to kind of force that humour in there, bringing Darcy back and these kind of supporting characters from the first Thor movie, and I just don't think they needed to do that. They should have focused a lot more on the kind of otherworldly beings and focusing a lot more on the other realms, which they kind of didn't. Even though there was a lot I didn't like about Thor the Dark World, there was a lot that I did like, so even though it comes in at the bottom of the pile, it wasn't that bad. It's not great, but I don't hate it. And next up, coming in at number 12, it's Iron Man 2. Now, Iron Man 2, again with Thor the Dark World, comes in at the bottom of the pile for me. It was kind of a difficult decision choosing between the two of them, which one I dislike the most, or which one I like the most out of the two of them. And for me, I put Iron Man 2 just above Thor the Dark World, because even though I don't hate Thor the Dark World, Iron Man 2 is probably slightly better, because even though there's a lot that doesn't work, and it feels very much like a prequel to the Avengers, like it's probably a sequel that didn't really need to happen, but they forced it into production because of the success and the popularity of the first Iron Man film, which is understandable. But then the story wasn't all that great, and again the villains weren't that great, and it felt a lot like just setting up for the Avengers, introducing Nick Fury, introducing Black Widow, introducing and exploring S.H.I.E.L.D., which they needed to do. They needed to kind of set up and kind of introduce us to that before getting into the first Avengers, but it felt very kind of just like, oh, this is the film that's just introducing us to all these different things and just setting up all these different things for the Avengers. And it wasn't as great an Iron Man film as the first one, even though there was a lot to like. Obviously Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. back in that role, and him teaming up with Don Cheadle as War Machine, that was pretty cool to see. But again, another pretty lackluster, underwhelming Marvel movie. Even though it wasn't horrendous, I still like it somewhat for the most part. It comes in at the bottom of the pile along with Thor the Dark World. Next up, coming in at number 11, we have The Incredible Hulk. Again, The Incredible Hulk is not one that I hate, but it comes in towards the bottom of the pile for me because I'm not that big of a fan of it. I think it's a pretty good film, but I like what Louis Leterrier did with it. It's leaps and bounds ahead of the 2003 one, the Ang Lee one. Oh my god, it's way better than that. It's a pretty decent film, but I just never really bought into Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. I mean, he's alright, he's pretty good, but He just seems more like just some man on the run as opposed to a kind of genius scientist. And also, this isn't really a big thing, but just the look of the Hulk bugs me in this film. It doesn't look horrible or anything, but it just looks too much like a video game for me. And what I think the Avengers got so right is not only was Mark Ruffalo so great in that role, but the Hulk looked a lot more realistic. It was motion capture. It looked like Mark Ruffalo, whereas in this film, Hulk and Bruce Banner, they don't really look all that similar. And although the action's cool and it is really cool and fun to watch, the action sequences, like I said, I never really bought into Edward Norton as Bruce Banner, and the Hulk didn't really look like him that much, and I was never really keen on the look of the Hulk, even though I think it's a pretty good film. The action's really cool and fun to watch, but at the end of the day, I think it's one of the lesser Marvel movies. Coming in at number 10, we have the first Thor film. I actually like the first Thor film. It's one of those films, one of the Marvel films that I watched at first and I was like, it's okay, but it was one that grew on me over time. And back when it came out, when I kept rewatching it, it seemed to get better and better, and I seemed to like it more and more the more times I watched it. I don't really watch it that often anymore. It's not one of the best films from Marvel's Phase 1, but I think it is a pretty good origin story for the character of Thor. It's not perfect, but there's a lot to really like about this film. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Anthony Hopkins as Odin. It's a great kind of almost Shakespearean kind of family drama that just happens to feature kind of these kind of Asgardian otherworldly beings in this kind of big fantasy movie. And I think Kenneth Branagh did a really good job with that first film, much better than the second film, I think. Yeah, so that's Thor at number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have Captain America the First Avenger. Despite coming in at number 9, I actually really like Captain America the First Avenger. I remember back when it came out, I absolutely loved it. Probably the first film in Marvel's Phase 1, other than, say, the first Iron Man, that I really loved, and it really kind of got me into the Marvel movies. I just love Captain America as a character. He's probably one of my favourite, if not my favourite Avenger, and I loved that first Captain America film. I think it was a great introduction to the character of Captain America. The setting, it was kind of this kind of almost a little bit hokey, kind of fun adventure war movie type film. Joe Johnston, I think, was a great fit for that, and it was a great introduction to Captain America and that world and his origin. Some things were a little kind of rushed into, like we didn't get a lot of his kind of backstory and kind of childhood or a relationship with Bucky. It was all kind of a little bit kind of skimmed over and rushed into, but for the most part, I really like Captain America the First Avenger. I think Red Skull was a pretty good bad guy. I really liked Hugo Weaving in that role, and yeah, I really like Captain America the First Avenger. Next up at number 8, we have Avengers Age of Ultron. And again, this is another one I really like. It's not perfect, it does have some problems, but even though I don't think it's one of the best Marvel movies, it's still one that I really enjoy. For me, what stops it from being further up on my list is that there's some things that don't quite fit. I feel a bit out of place, like the whole Thor subplot where he goes off and has the kind of the visions and that. The alternate scene on the Blu-ray is actually a lot better, but the scene in the film where he's having the visions in the pool, it just feels out of place. It feels like it was just shoehorned in there, and there's a lot of stuff that feels like it was just shoehorned in there just to set up other films. And when you look past all that stuff and strip it back, it's actually a really good Avengers sequel and a really good film. But what let it down and what bogged it down was the fact that there was a lot of stuff that was just shoehorned in there just to connect it to the wider cinematic universe, just to set up other films. It was kind of teasing and setting up Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, and there was just so much crammed into that film. It was probably a little bit too overstuffed and overloaded, too many things going on, even though I still really like it. It's not as good as the first Avengers, but I still really enjoy Age of Ultron. I think it's a really good fun time. Next up, coming in at number 7, it's Iron Man 3. And this will probably be a lot lower on a lot of other people's lists. A lot of people, especially the hardcore fans, really don't like Iron Man 3. But for me, I really enjoy Iron Man 3. I think it's really good. It's not one of the best Marvel movies. It's not without its problems, for sure. It's not perfect, but what I liked about Iron Man 3 is that it tried to do something different. It was still kind of, Iron Man. It was still an Iron Man movie, but it was more of a Shane Black film. It was more of his take on the character. They were going for something a little different, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. There's quite a bit of humour in there, but I think the humour really works, and I found it really, thoroughly entertaining when the first time I watched it, and I still really like it now. It's not a film that I go back and revisit all the time, but I really don't get the kind of complaints and criticism from a lot of the fans. I think there was just a big uproar with the fact that, the whole twist involving the Mandarin. But for me, I like the twist. I think it was really cleverly done. I think it was really well executed, really well done with Ben Kingsley's performance. I thought was great. And even though it was a bit of a kind of like surprise, it did take you back at first, I enjoyed it. I like that they had the balls to actually do that, do a kind of twist like that. And the Mandarin is not like, a kind of Joker level villain, even though he's quite a big Iron Man villain. I like what they did with that twist. It made it more kind of like, you could buy into it a lot more, where it's just this actor pretending to be this character. And I think it was really funny, really well done, a great twist, and I actually really enjoy Iron Man 3. Next up, coming in at number 6, we have AntMan. Now, AntMan was actually a really big surprise. I didn't think it was going to be bad, but obviously there was a lot that went on behind the scenes with Edgar Wright departing from the project, even though he was working on it for like the best part of 10 years. And I would love to have seen Edgar Wright's version of this film. It's hard to say whether Edgar Wright's version would have been better or not. I think it would have been a lot more kind of dynamic and energetic and cool and edgy, a little bit more different. But I love what we got in the end of this finished product with Peyton Reed. They brought on board to direct Ant-Man, and it's actually really good fun. It's when I saw Ant-Man back in 2015 with my friend at the cinema, what struck me was that it was refreshing, and that it was a superhero movie that was just fun, and it was joyous and entertaining and light-hearted. A lot of comic book movies we get nowadays are so kind of overly serious and dark and dramatic, and Ant-Man was just such a breath of fresh air. It was a movie that didn't take itself too seriously. It had fun. You could have fun with it, and I really enjoyed Ant-Man. We had Paul Rudd in there in the lead role, great cast, Michael Douglas, Evangeline Lilly, Corey Stoll, Michael Pena, really good fun. Not one of the top best Marvel films, but a really pleasant surprise and a really good fun time. Now this is where it gets good. Getting into the top 5 now, and first up I have Iron Man. Now this is a film that might be even higher on a lot of other people's lists. A lot of people regard this as one of the best, maybe even the best Marvel film. I think, according to Rotten Tomatoes, it's got the highest rating on Rotten Tomatoes, I think, which, isn't surprising. I think it is really great. It's definitely the best out of the Iron Man films, and one of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe films they've done yet. I think it's maybe a little overrated, and it's overblown a little bit just because it was the very first one, but still, it deserves all the praise and recognition it has, because this was the very first Marvel film, and it was quite a big risk to go with something like Iron Man, which at the time wasn't as big and popular a character and franchise as it is now. It was actually a very big risk to do a character like Iron Man for their first movie. An actor like Robert Downey Jr., who had gone through quite a rough time, the late 90s, early 2000s, getting him back, him having this resurgence in popularity with the Iron Man role, which has kind of made him the massive big star he is today. And what Jon Favreau did with that first Iron Man movie was remarkable. It was a superhero movie that wasn't just one of the better Marvel movies and comic book movies we've ever seen, but it was a superhero film that was so different to every other superhero film, because it was a character who was a lot more real and grounded. He wasn't some fantastical otherworldly being. He was a character who was flawed, who had problems, who had issues. He wasn't a perfect, good-hearted guy, but he was a guy who went from being a bit of an ass at the beginning to then going on this great arc and becoming this hero, redeeming himself. In order to become a superhero, he has to save his life and save his soul and redeem himself, and he's reborn as Iron Man and becomes this hero. Great origin story, great arc, great character, great film. Everything was just on point with Iron Man. One of the best Marvel movies we've had. And at number 4, I've got Guardians of the Galaxy. I would love to put this movie even higher. It's definitely one of my personal favourites. I was deciding on which way around to put Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, whether to put Guardians of the Galaxy maybe just above Avengers, but for me, what it comes down to is the villain. I think Loki's better than Ronan, but that aside, Guardians is absolutely fantastic and such a thoroughly entertaining and enjoyable film. It was a film that I was expecting to be good. I was hoping to like it, and another one that I went to see with my friend back when it came out, and it was one of the best times in the cinema that I've ever had. I had such a good fun time. It was such a great film, but so funny and so entertaining. For me, it's the funniest out of all the Marvel films, as great as the humour is in Avengers and Iron Man. for me, Guardians is the funniest, and like I said, it was one of the best times I've ever had in the cinema. Great characters, great performances by all the actors, great action, great effects. James Gunn did such an incredible job in this film, so quite different from all the other Marvel movies. It's not really set in that same world, it's set in a completely different galaxy, but it was so cool and different and out there, and it was so much fun. So yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. And next up at number 3, I've got the first Avengers film. Again, this might be another one that some people have even higher, but Avengers came in at number 3 for me because as much as I love the Avengers, there's a couple of others that I think might be just better films, but you know, what is there not to say about the Avengers that hasn't been said already? It was just Marvel's kind of smash hit. It was just such a global phenomenon. You know, the Marvel movies are as popular as they are today because of something like the Avengers. That was the first movie that was such a massive global smash hit for Marvel, and deservedly so, because Joss Whedon did such an incredible job with the script, with the film, with his writing, his directing, the way in which he implemented humour in there that made us able to relate to the characters. It made it more just, you know, fresh and funny, relatable, and you know how he brought all these characters together. Yes, story wise it was pretty simplistic and straightforward, but it was already such a big risk bringing all these characters and interweaving all these different franchises together into one big event film, and Joss Whedon did it so seamlessly and so effortlessly. How he brought all these different characters and weaved them all together into the same story, and it was just such a great fun time at the cinema. All these different heroes, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye, how they all came together in that film. Oh, and of course, Tom Hiddleston as Loki. It was just so great. So yeah, the Avengers. Coming in at number 2, and this was another quite tricky decision for me, deciphering between which one to put at number 2 and number 1. But coming in at number 2, we got Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I just absolutely loved Captain America's films, especially Winter Soldier, because for me, even though I loved First Avenger and what they did there, that made me fall in love with Captain America, the Winter Soldier blew me away, because up until that film, a lot of people, not myself included, but a lot of people were thinking Captain America's a bit lame, he's a bit boring. You know, I was like, no, he's such a cool, awesome, badass hero, and the Winter Soldier showed that to us. It showed us how much of a cool, awesome, badass Captain America really is. Even though he's a clean-cut, squeaky clean good guy, he's like so badass because he's the ultimate good guy. Like, he will never be corrupted. Even if it's the entire world standing against him, he will stand and fight for what's right. And the Winter Soldier really captured that so brilliantly. How, you know, S.H.I.E.L.D. was all corrupted and taken over by Hydra, everyone's turning against him, but he's standing there fighting back against the tyranny of the Hydra taking over. Winter Soldier in there, such a great bad guy. You know, Bucky, you know, the whole twist involving Bucky being the Winter Soldier, and the fact that he's such a deadly, ruthless, relentless bad guy, but at the same time you can sympathise with him because he's a brainwashed former friend of Captain America's. That dynamic I thought was done so well, and just everything about the Winter Soldier I absolutely love. I can go on and on about it, but there's really nothing I don't like. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. And here we are at number 1, and coming in at the top spot, it had to be Captain America Civil War. Again, another Captain America film, and it was quite tricky deciding between Winter Soldier and Civil War. The reason why I put this video off for so long is I was deciding which one to put at number 1. But I watched Civil War again for the 4th time on Blu-ray the other month, and I was like, no, this is going to be number 1. As much as I love Winter Soldier, and there's really nothing I don't like about Winter Soldier, I think it's just great, you know, that could have easily been number 1 as well. But I rewatched Civil War again, and for me it just had to be number 1, because as much as I love Winter Soldier, Civil War for me is even better. What the Russo brothers were able to do with that film. They did a remarkable job of Winter Soldier for sure, but with Civil War, bringing in all these other characters, there was a danger that it could become overstuffed, overloaded, too many things going on, not feeling streamlined and focused, but it did. You know, it was a story that involved pretty much all of the Avengers, but it was still at its core Captain America's story. He was still the central character, and it still focused primarily on the conflict between Captain America and Iron Man, while still featuring all these other heroes within the story, including Spider-Man, who was just had a, you know, absolutely amazing debut, and Black Panther, who was one of my favourite Marvel superheroes who yet to make it to the big screen. He was done so spectacularly well. I was worried whether that would be as great as I wanted it to be, but it was. Chadwick Boseman really knocked it out of the park, and just everything about it. Ant-Man in that scene-stealing kind of airport battle. There was just so many things about this movie that I love, but not only is it a really fun, entertaining and enjoyable roller coaster of a ride, one of the most entertaining Marvel movies yet. Again, the humour really works well, but what elevates this film for me above the rest is the fact that it's more dramatic, I would say, and it's more character driven. As much as big and crazy as it is action wise, it's a lot more focused on the characters, and it goes a lot deeper into the characters. It's a lot more goes into a lot more of their kind of psyches and what they're really thinking and feeling, how they act in this kind of situation when this political kind of Superior Registration Act arises, and how we see how all these different characters react to it and how they interact with one another. And I just loved how it went deeper into these characters, and it became more of a kind of exploration of who these characters really are deep down underneath these facades and these masks, who they really are as people deep down, and seeing the conflict between them, just the human interactions between them. Like, for me, as much as I love the airport battle and the big crazy action sequences, I think the finale of the film is so fantastically well done, because they could have easily have gone with another really big, massive, big bloated action sequences of them taking on big supervillains, but they didn't. The final battle is just Cap versus Iron Man, and obviously Bucky's there as well. And for me, as much as I love the airport battle, I think the final battle might be even better, because it's so powerful and so emotional. Like, you can really feel for these characters, for both Cap and Iron Man. You can see where they're both coming from, and it's such an incredibly powerful scene. Just even the dialogue exchange before the fight actually begins. There's so much great acting in this film all around. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, all of the cast. There's so much that this film does so well. And for me, I was even like tearing up at certain points as well. Like that bit near the end where Black Panther's talking to Zemo, that hit me surprisingly quite emotionally, like the fourth time watching it, which I really didn't see coming. And there's just so much about this film that I love, from action, drama, character, even getting slightly emotional in parts as well. And for me, this film is the best Marvel movie. Is it perfect? I don't think so. It's not like flawless, not by any means, but for me, I absolutely love Civil War. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, Marvel movie and the best film Marvel has done thus far. So for me, at number one at my Marvel movies ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at number one is Captain America Civil War. And there we go, that wraps up my video of ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What do you think about my list? How would you rank the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Which do you think are the worst? Which do you think are the best? Let me know in the comments down below, I'd love to know. And as always, if you like this, then make sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.